this is your first time to the channel, my name is Scott. I'm a practicing physician assistant working in endocrinology, also a type 1 diabetic. If you're interested in diabetes related news, tech talk, product reviews, please go and subscribe to the channel. We'll be coming out new content all the time. Alright, so I'm sure we've all heard of the Tandem T-Slim, the Omnipod, and the Medtronic pumps, but mylife YpsoPump is one that really hasn't been on a lot of people's radar. The pump is now available in many countries across the world, and they recently teamed up with Eli Lilly to help make it available here in the United States. So I thought now would be a good time to go over the pump and talk about what makes it different than some other pumps that are on the market, and in some cases better than other pumps that are available. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about the hardware, specifically the physical dimensions of the pump. One of the great things about this pump is just how small and light it is. It weighs only 83 grams or 2.9 ounces. That's including the insulin and the battery. Now, to put this in perspective, the T-Slim is 3.95 ounces or 111 grams. The Medtronic is 3.7 ounces or 106 grams, and that's without the battery. So you can see by comparison just how much smaller and lighter this pump is compared to the competition, only coming in at 83 grams. And weight is a super important detail as this thing's attached to you all day long. Let's talk about another important area of the hardware on this pump, and that's the infusion sets. So the YpsoPump is the only pump, to my knowledge, to use what's called an orbital infusion set, meaning the tubing can rotate 360 degrees around the cannula. That's a really big deal because, as we know, using stationary infusion sets, a lot of times it can cause crimping and other problems. So having this pump with a 360 degree rotation infusion set is really something that would save a lot of headaches and a lot of crimping and other problems. And then moving on along that infusion set is the actual insulin cartridge. So this is another area that they made a lot of improvements in. So to start, at the base of the pump tubing, there's a valve, and that connects to the insulin cartridge. Now, with any other pump, when the insulin runs out, not only do you have to replace the insulin with a new cartridge, but you also have to replace the infusion set. But because of this valve that's on this pump, this allows you to disconnect the tubing from the insulin cartridge without introducing any air into the tubing, and you can just change out the insulin by itself, and you don't have to replace the infusion set. And that's another really nice touch and something that you won't find on other insulin pumps on the market. All right, so let's talk about the insulin cartridge itself, because that's an area where there's some pros and there's some cons. So with the cartridges, you have two options. You can fill them yourself in little glass cartridges, and then you just pop them out of the fridge when you need them. And then the other option is you can actually buy pre-filled cartridges. So Novolog, Humalog, they all sell pre-filled cartridges, and this just makes it really easy because they're already filled and you can just change them out in a few seconds. You literally pull this out of the fridge, pop it in the insulin pump, it takes a few seconds, and then remember, this can be done without changing the infusion set. So all it takes is literally pulling it out of the fridge, putting it into the pump, and you're done. Compare that to other insulin pumps where you actually have to fill them yourselves with syringes, change the infusion set every single time. It's a lot less work with this pump. So that's the pro. But there is a downside to this cartridge system, and that's the actual volume that these cartridges can hold. So looking at the website, you can see the cartridges only hold about 160 units of insulin. That's a lot less compared to other pumps that generally hold anywhere from 200 to 300 units per insulin cartridge. So if you're using a lot of insulin on a day-to-day basis, this may be a deal breaker for you. Alright, so that's the hardware side of things. What about the software that's running this pump? With the YpsoPump, it's all about simplicity. They've basically stripped down the software to just the plain essentials. If we look at the home screen, we can see it's all icon-based. There's little to no text. It's kind of like an iPhone home screen. So it's a really simple and plain design. And for most people, there'd be a very minimal learning curve to learning how to use a pump like this, and that's really the idea with this. And then we can see there's only a total of 7 icons, which is bolus, basal rates, cartridge level / cartridge change, prime infusion set, data, stop run mode, and settings, and that's it, nice and simple. So those are the basics of the pump software. Let's talk about some of the fancier stuff next, your remote bolus, your automated insulin delivery, and the app that's going to be running this on your smartphone. So let's first start with the automated insulin delivery. So at this time, they do have an automated insulin delivery system that's using the Dexcom. It uses an app called mylife CamApps FX, which is a hybrid closed loop system. It has all of the usual features that automated systems offer, the auto correction boluses, temporary basal rates, so I'm not going to bore you with those details. But there is one thing that I wanted to mention that's very unique with the automated insulin delivery system on this pump, and that's the wide range you can set your target glucose level. So on most pumps, you have some variability of the target glucose levels that you can set. On the Medtronic, it's 100 to 120. Omnipod, it's 110 to 150. So you have some variability there, but this one sets a whole new level to variability. So this one you can actually set the blood sugar target anywhere from as low as 80 all the way up to 200, which is just a crazy wide option with your target glucose level. And being able to set it at 80 is a big deal for a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of people would really be happy to hear that, because I know I've heard a lot of complaints about pumps and not being able to set the target glucose lower than the current setting. So being able to set it as low as 80 is a really big deal, so you have a really wide variability there in your target glucose level. It's important to note that while in Europe and other parts of the world, this is the app that you're going to be using for the algorithm for the automated insulin delivery, but in the United States, you won't be using this. Eli Lilly said they're going to be developing a different system, but there's a little good news on that. I've actually heard that they may be teaming up with Type 0 to develop the algorithm. Now, if you're not familiar with that group, Type 0 is actually the same team that developed the algorithm for Control-IQ for Tandem, which is probably one of the best automated insulin delivery systems out there, if not the best. So that's really good news to hear that they're teaming up with them. So it's definitely exciting to hear, but we'll have to wait for the official details once it's released here in the United States to get the confirmation about that. So that's the automated insulin delivery system. What about remote bolusing though, which a lot of pumps here in the United States and other parts of the world are starting to develop and come out with. So they do have a remote bolus system in the works for the Yspomed pump. It's called mylife Dose. So it's in the pipeline. It will be available soon, as they state on their website, for both Android and iOS. Finally, they do offer an app for the pump to display your bolus and basal data, as well as being able to view your Dexcom data remotely. At the time of this recording, it's only available for Android, but I'm sure at some point in the future that'll change and be available for iOS as well. So as far as availability, this pump is available in a number of countries across the world: Australia, Belgium, Canada, France, Spain, United Kingdom. Not here in the US yet though, but as I mentioned before, Yspomed has recently partnered with Eli Lilly, and the hope is that they'll have the pump submitted to the FDA sometime in 2022. So hopefully we'll be hearing something towards the end of the year, maybe about a release, or maybe sometime in 2023. One last thing that I wanted to mention about the partnership with Eli Lilly and this pump. If you're familiar with Eli Lilly, you'll know that they're the same company that makes Humalog and Lyumjev. So if you think you're going to be using any insulin besides Humalog and Lyumjev for this pump, you're probably going to be disappointed. So very likely this pump will be limited to just being able to use Humalog and Lyumjev, unlike all the other pumps that are out there on the market, which you can pretty much use anything you want, Novolog, Fiasp, etc. So very good chance that because this is going to be made by Eli Lilly here in the US, you will be locked into just using Humalog and Lyumjev, which may not be a big deal for some people, but others that could possibly be a deal breaker. So just another thing to consider. So that is a quick overview of the YpsoPump. It's definitely got a lot of unique features and exciting upgrades that I haven't seen on a lot of other insulin pumps. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you as always for watching the video.